potluck dinners continued, and the services continued, and life just went on as usual. We kept just having our church services, but then their illusions and their comfortability was shattered. In verse 2 it says that Herod killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. So here we're talking about not just a believer, but one of, actually, the brother of John. Okay, James, one of the top men, okay, murdered, killed. And I think at that moment, suddenly the church realized that they were not invincible, that there were things at stake, that there were risks, that there were dangers, that truly the enemy was walking about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And then it says in verse 3 that when Herod saw that it was pleasing to the Jews what he had done, he proceeded further and he arrested Peter. And these were in the days of unleavened bread in the Passover week. And when he seized Peter, in verse 4, he put him into prison and delivered him to 4 squads of soldiers, of 4 each to guard him, purposing that after the Passover he would bring him forth to the people. Peter was kept in prison. This to me is the linchpin verse of this whole story. So Peter was kept in prison, but fervent prayer for him was persistently made to God by the church assembly. So the church wakes up. Herod kills James. Suddenly their security is shattered. And then he goes on, he arrests Peter, and the church realizes that they had better wake up. They had better cancel the potluck dinners. They had better come out of their comfort zone, begin to pray, begin to intercede for Peter's release. And again, I read this to the staff a couple of days ago. I want to read this again because I wrote, this was kind of the thought that summarized this whole book when I wrote it. God forbid that we should have to be shaken out of our complacency by tragedy or disaster. How much better it would be if we would remain vigilant in prayer, recognizing that even in the good times, your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh around, seeking whom he may devour. This is 1 Peter 5:8. I think that's a little bit of what's happened to us. I think we've been disturbed. I think we've been shaken out of our complacency. And perhaps we'll continue to be shaken out of our complacency until we truly wake up. There's a poem by Sir Francis Drake called "Disturb Us, Lord." You know, we always talk about revival. I hear lots of people talking about revival. And I think what most people think is that revival is great church services where people get goosebumps and they fall down. You hear great songs. But to be revived is to be shaken. It's to be awakened. That's a very uncomfortable place to be. And many of the very churches praying for revival have a do not disturb sign hanging on the door. They want great services, but they don't want to be shaken up. Wow. They don't want to be disturbed. They've got their programs, they've got their rituals, they've got, you know, those leaves that we talked about this morning, that they've come to rely on. It's a system. It's something that they've put their confidence and trust in. They don't want those leaves brushed aside. You know what I mean? This poem, "Disturb Us, Lord," when we are too pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we have dreamed too little, when we arrived safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, when with the abundance of things we possess, we have lost our thirst for the waters of life. Having fallen in love with life, we have ceased to dream of eternity. And in our efforts to build a new earth, we have allowed our vision of the new heaven to dim.
Oh, goodness.
So 1 Thessalonians 5:6, "Therefore let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober." So,
What was the name of the poem? Disturb Us?
disturb us, Lord.